They're not psychiatric problems. I can't sit still long enough to be miseducated, so I'm ADHD. My teacher disrespects me, I disrespect her back, so now I got conduct disorder. You teaching me that Christopher Columbus was somebody great and Barack Obama is somebody I should look up to, and I know better than that, so now I'm opposition of defiant disorder. The school police officer puts his hands on me, I put my hands on him back, I'm disruptive behavior disorder. Do you know what those disorders are? Those are diagnoses given to black boys who refuse to have their spirit broken.
I don't want to say pullbacks, but what is it that they do that may frustrate you as a psychologist, that may interfere with your ability to get the child to be a better person or lead them in a better direction?
Number one, the biggest, most frustrating thing about conversing with our parents is how many of them refuse to accept responsibility for the child's problem. As you know, the most frequently diagnosed special education disability is the specific learning disability. And many of our children who are diagnosed as learning disabled don't have a learning disability. They are not learning disabled. They simply have not been appropriately taught, or the education they received has not been appropriately reinforced at home. And a lot of times in my report, I state just that although this child's reading level or math level or writing level is significantly below that of other children their age or in their grade, it is not indicative of a learning disability. It is indicative of the 14th disability, unofficial disability, one that I created, which is called ain't been taught. Many of our children are simply struggling, Claude, because they never been taught. And what I try to get parents to understand is part of the reason that they're delayed, or part of the reason that they haven't been taught, is because you either have not been reinforcing the instruction, or you have not been advocating for your child in school to make sure they get taught. But a lot of parents want to take the easy way out. They simply want to have the child classified, put in special ed, and now they never have to worry about working with them again, because most special education children are socially promoted to the next grade, whether they can read, write, or do math, simply because of this false notion that they have a learning problem. So that's the biggest issue, getting parents to take control. The second issue is getting parents to recognize that I actually care about them and their child, and that I'm trying to do what's in the child's best interest. I've had parents, this rarely happens, rarely, but I have on occasion, and it will always come up on occasion, had parents to disagree with me and go along with these teachers or principals who could care less about their child, but who are pushing special education so they no longer have to be accountable for making sure that child is functioning on the same level as their peers. So when you have a black parent take the side of a school administrator, and many of whom are white and don't care about our children, that can bother you as a black man who takes the pain and suffering and struggle of our children home with them every night. Last minute cancellations. I don't get a lot of them, but because I am in demand at this time, I normally have 2 or 3 different hosts who are interested in one date. And so normally first come gets the date. The only time I'll cancel something if there's something that I consider to be much more important in terms of getting information out to the general African public. For example, if I'm being requested for a television interview or a radio interview that's going to reach way more people than that particular host is going to reach by bringing me in, then I may cancel or reschedule. But I rarely do that because I like to keep my word. But when I get a last minute cancellation, it bothers me, not because I lost out on the event, but because I could have gave it to someone else. In other words, if Virginia wants me for an event and they cancel at the last minute, and Texas also wanted me for that event, or Florida wanted me for that same exact date, then there's parents in Texas or Florida who may have wanted that date, but because that particular host in that particular city or state waited to the last minute to cancel, now everyone loses out. From now, which is almost December 1st, until April the 1st. From now until April the 1st, I probably only have about 5 or 6 Saturdays available from now until spring. And so I need individuals to be very respectful of my time and respectful of other Africans, because what I'm doing is a crusade, and there's really no one else who's sharing the information to the degree that I am and to the quality that I am. There's other educators and psychologists, but most people would probably agree no one has a command of this issue like I do and is going to deal with it in a manner in which that I will. So if you're going to request me to come somewhere, you keep your word. After I get to an event, one of the most frustrating things is having to wait for speakers who can keep the audience's attention. That kind of becomes an issue, Claude, because what happens is people will begin to leave. So let's say I'm the second speaker, I'm the fifth speaker out of 5, or I'm the 8th speaker out of 8. You know, if that first or second speaker doesn't keep the audience's attention, by the time I get to the podium, there may be no one left. And so sometimes I find myself nudging the host saying, hey, you got to move me up. You know, because if you don't move me up, there's going to be no one here to listen. And that comes from the fact that within our community and within American society as a whole, you see the rule of fame. So whoever is the most famous person tends to get the best speaking slot. And so someone like me, who's more grassroots oriented, who's not a black bourgeoisie or anyone like that, you know, I will still make the program because I have grassroots validity. People are going to come to hear Dr. Umar Johnson. However, because they may be making their money on another speaker, so to speak, then maybe their speaking time should have been mine. And so waiting after someone who's really not good, who's dissipating the audience, by the time I get up there, there's parents who should have heard what I had to say who can't because I had to go behind a boring speaker who may have had a national name. But just because you're well known doesn't mean you can keep an audience's attention when you're in front of a microphone. Those are two totally different things. Because it's personal to people. And we also have to keep in mind that people are more concerned about themselves than their children, you know, and so because of that, you know, it's going to get a lot of hits. Another reason, too, that topic also applies to people who don't have children. Even though that particular presentation was for women only, you have to remember, Claude, that teenagers could tap into that topic. College educated women could tap into that topic. So it's not parent specific. It's for all women and is relevant for teenagers as well as for older women. So I think that's probably the primary reason why. But also a lot of people just aren't concerned about black children, even black parents.
Blended families. Who's the man of the house? When you elevate your son to man of the house status and don't prepare him for the transition, you are looking for trouble. No man is going to be ruled by your little boy. Did you hear that? Now you got to recognize most of us when we get married, we're going to be in blended families. Okay? I got mine, you got yours, we got to make that work. But some of y'all, because you ain't got no man, you upgrade your son. And you don't downgrade his ass when you're about to bring another man into your life. So he's asking you, when you coming home? You're going out the door with me, and some little thing like this talk is at Mom, when you coming back? And you answering him too, like you his daughter. You follow me? Well, I'll be back. Now, you told me you're going to be home in time to take me. Well, and I'm standing like, what is this? You married to your son. I'm not talking about incest. I'm just talking about that psychological marriage. I got to stop that. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you done upgraded your son to your husband status and he don't like me, he's going to destroy that relationship because I ain't got the patience. Are y'all with me? I'm not going to be answering to no little boy. And I'm going to tell you what else. If he's in my house, he will live under my law. Some of y'all got that problem. That's my baby. You can't chastise him. That's my baby, can't chastise him. Well, guess what? My daughter is seeing what he's doing, and she's going to start thinking she can do it. It ain't happening in here. So you know what? We got to separate. We could have been soulmates, but because you ain't have your house in order with your own children, I had to let you go. Ladies, that's a big problem with men. I got professional friends. They say, you know what, Umar? I love her. I'm trying to work it out. But those kids are bad. She don't spank them. She don't time out them or nothing. And you know what I find, women? Can we be honest for a moment? The reason why you let your son do what he wants, because he look just like his dad, and you still in love with his dad.
What do my critics tend to say about me? That's interesting. I don't pay a lot to criticism. I would probably guess that they may say something about me being a Pan-Africanist, or they may say something about me having an Arabic name. They may say something about me not being married. What else would they say about me? There's always something out there, you know, but I don't really pay no attention to the critics. I just keep on going. You know, my thing is this. If you really want to judge a man's worth, if you look at the amount of support that he gets and you look at the amount of difference that he makes, there's a lot of people out there talking, they just talking. They're not making a difference in nobody's life. I change lives on a daily basis. There's not a day I go to sleep where I didn't help some family, some parent, some child. There's few people my age on the lecture circuit who can say that they make a difference in the life of a child every single day that they are alive. I can say that. Few others cannot. I've never heard a speaker like you. When I hear that from an elder, I never forget it. I can probably remember photogenically every elder who has ever said that to me. I probably heard it about a dozen times from elders. I've heard it from other people. But when I hear that from someone who's in their 60s and older, I never forget that, because these people have been able to listen to some of my heroes speak. And when you hear someone who's old enough to be a grandparent tell you that I've never heard someone as good as you, it really means something. I remember the first time I spoke to a public audience in New York last October 2010. You were there. There was an elder who came up to me at the end. I'll never forget him. And he shook my hand and he said, I've heard all of them. Name them, and I've heard them all give speeches. And you are by far the best that I've ever heard. And I don't seek to compete. It ain't about the competition. But to have an elder tell you that you are the very best public speaker they've heard, and they've heard all of them, then that tells you that, you know, your gift, your God-given gift is on the level of some of the greatest names that our people have ever produced. Okay. Most of the brothers in the conscious community who I've personally met, they show me a lot of love. You know, I get Facebook messages from other brothers. Dr. Ray Hagins of the African Village, he sends me positive messages on Facebook from time to time. Dr. Phil Valentine, you know, we've conversed, collaborated. We're going to collaborate on the project. Booker T. Coleman, I get positive messages from him as well. Most of the elders, I get nothing but love. I do get some jealousy from some elders, particularly those who are in the same field as I. I guess it's that young lion, old lion kind of thing. You know, I'm nobody's understudy. I'm a self-made man. I kicked the door in. You know, I didn't need any help from nobody. I did it on my own, and it wasn't an easy road, but I'm self-made, so I don't owe anybody anything. You know, and sometimes the older lions can get a little jealous at the amount of attention that I get, the amount of requests to speak that I do get. In terms of young brothers and sisters who are my age, there's always going to be some jealousy out there. I do get some of that. You know, I hear things through the grapevine. I see certain derogatory things that are said or made about me from time to time. But a lot of that just comes with the territory. You know, oratory is my gift. I was born to speak. I'm going to speak. I'm a lot better than most, you know, and I can't be afraid of people being jealous. I just do what I got to do. Okay, I'm pretty much open to anyone if they are willing to receive my subject matter. I'm a very honest presenter. Unlike other black presenters who are very careful about what they say, who script what they say, when you listen to Dr. Umar Johnson, you're going to get the unadulterated truth. The topic that I speak on the most, which is my passion, and is actually the topic for which I'm most known for, and it is also the topic that pretty much gave rise to my public speaking career. And that is the psychoacademic war against black boys. And with that topic, we're talking about how special education, psychiatric medication, juvenile incarceration, and the resulting psychological frustration and alienation on part of black boys ultimately puts them at risk for premature extermination through homicide or suicide. And it is that topic that is most passionate to me, because as a black man myself, having been through the school system, I see how we as black males can be treated. And I see how the ADHD movement and the special ed movement and the mild mental retardation movement and the juvenile incarceration movement are all grown from the same seed of white supremacy that dominates our public, charter, parochial, and private school movement. So that's my most passionate topic. And then finally, this past February at the Brownsville Recreation Center, we was finally able to make that a reality. It wasn't a very large turnout, but I was just glad to get it off my chest. And the motivation for doing the For Sisters Only Relationships and Dating lecture grew from a audio CD that I created, which was called For Sisters Only Relationships and Dating, that I did several years ago in the privacy of my home. And I began distributing that at different lectures, and the feedback I got back from sisters was phenomenal. I started getting phone calls from therapists and life coaches who were asking if they can make copies and give it to their clients, give it to their patients. And they said, you should probably do more on this topic. I really hadn't thought about that because I'm not a married man. I've never been married. However, as a psychologist doing therapy and counseling with school-aged children, you often become a de facto family counselor because the problems that children have come from the issues that their parents have. So in working with children, I have to work with mom and I have to work with dad. And more particularly, I have to work with biological mom and biological dad. So given my experience as a child therapist, which I've been doing probably almost 15, 20 years now, I have gained a lot of insight into black male-female relationships, what makes them tick, and from a clinical standpoint, what can make them work. And so I've been spending a lot of time speaking on black male-female relationships. It's clearly something we need. It was not something that I originally thought of, but when you look at the marriage rate and you look at the promiscuity rates within our married couples, you see that black marriage is probably at the top, one of the issues at the top of the list when you're dealing with black people. The only thing that's probably more crucial and important is the psychoacademic war against black boys. I would love to spend more time talking to children. I don't get enough time speaking to high schoolers. I don't get enough time speaking to college students. I don't get enough time speaking to middle school students. Those are groups that I have a lot of information for, who I don't get an opportunity to talk to a lot. For example, next summer I'll be speaking in Mississippi at a teen summit, and I believe also another teen summit in Louisiana. I'm looking forward to that because I get to engage children. Most of the time when I speak is with adults. I love it. I have no problem with it, but I also have a message for children, and I don't get an opportunity to speak to them enough. As far as topics, I think the topics that I cover, there's areas of those topics that I haven't dealt with enough. So not that I necessarily have to change topic, but I may have to change focus within that topic. My public speaking career has really grown in the past year. And as a result of that, I don't have as much time as I've traditionally had to test children in the schools. And as a result of that, there's probably going to come a time where I no longer evaluate as regularly. I'm always going to evaluate children because too many of our children are being misdiagnosed. For example, a black boy is 4 times as likely as a white boy to be diagnosed as mentally retarded, and yet 4 times less likely to be diagnosed as gifted. So I'm always going to be evaluating, but as I do more and more public speaking, I'll probably find myself picking and choosing the evaluations based on their severity. In other words, if it's just a standard evaluation, there's really no significant issue in that case, I'll refer that to another black psychologist. But if it's a case that I don't trust with anyone else, and sometimes there are cases that I don't trust with anyone else, even a black psychologist, I will go ahead and still take those on. But the good thing, the more that I speak, the more I'm able to prevent the crises before it happens. See, if a parent is coming to me for an evaluation, then that largely sends a message that we're getting to the problem too late. We should have gotten to it earlier and have been more proactively. So from a growth standpoint, I should end up speaking more than I test. Because if I'm speaking more than I test, then that's showing me that I'm able to impact the decisions that parents are making before it rises to the level that necessitates an evaluation. I'm a very spiritual guy. At home, I have a shrine to my ancestors. I meditate, I pray, I read spiritual material. I do not believe that you can be successful politically if you're not successful spiritually. In order for you to be a success, I think in the political realm, you got to be grounded spiritually. When you look at leaders in the black community, many of them have sold their souls to the devil, sold their souls to money, sold their souls to materialism. That's because they weren't spiritually rooted. And I know that at the end of the day, when you're judged about your contribution, people are going to look at your courage. They're going to look at your commitment. They're going to look at your consistency. Okay. They're going to look at your compassion. They're going to look at your creativity, and to keep all of those things alive, you got to be grounded. So I pour my libations, I pray, I meditate. I'm a very spiritual guy. Most people don't know that because when I'm on the lecture circuit, I keep it very political. I do that intentionally, Claude, because black people are very religious people. And because of that, once you start going into religion, you can easily get off track with our people. And I want people to understand one very, very clear thing. Our problems are not going to be solved by God. They're not going to be solved by ancestors. They're not going to be solved by angels. They're not going to be solved by spirits. They got to be solved by us. And so when I'm speaking to black people, because I know we have a religious immaturity about us, where we start looking to God to solve every problem we have. When I'm in the public eye, I rarely talk spirituality. I hardly ever talk religion because I know it's a weakness for us. And if you start telling black people that their problems are going to be solved just by faith, you'll get what you got now, which is almost no progress after 150 years of freedom.
I'd like to say to the audience that follows you?
I just like to say thank you. I want to thank everyone, for the support that they give me. People ask me all the time, what's the greatest benefit about public speaking? And do you ever get tired? With the tired question, no. I get tired physically like any human. But when it's time to speak, the energy comes from the universe and it comes right on through me. For example, a good friend of mine, Dion, in Kingsport, Tennessee, who I'll be with on New Year's Eve and who I was with several weeks ago for a very, very spiritual trip. I gave a lecture one night in Kingsport, Tennessee, and Dion, after the lecture, he said, you did a good job. But he said, I was a little afraid because he said, when you got here, you looked tired. And I thought you was about to kill over and go to sleep. And he said, so when I told you that it was time for you to go, out of nowhere, your energy came back. I was born to speak, like my ancestor Frederick Douglass. I just think I was born to speak. So do I get tired? Yes. Do I get tired of speaking? I never will, because speaking is my weapon. It's my ability to influence what people think, what they feel, and what they say. What I like most about public speaking, given the busy career, is the opportunity to interact with black people from all over the world. I was in Jamaica a couple of weeks. I was there guest speaker at the University of the West Indies commemorating National Heroes Month. Got an opportunity to go to Marcus Garvey's childhood home in St. Ann's Bay and see the first statue erected of Marcus Garvey. The government in Jamaica declared Marcus Garvey's home a national monument, and they're going to restore it. So I get to see a lot of things that I otherwise wouldn't see. I get to meet a lot of black people that I otherwise wouldn't meet. So speaking for me, it's almost like a vacation. People say you need a break. But my work is my vacation. There's no separation. I live to do what I do, and I'm going to die doing it, and train the next generation of speakers, But in terms of what's important with public speaking, you got to be committed to what you believe in. You have to be intelligent enough to present on that topic, and you must be energetic enough and effective enough in your delivery. I was never trained how to speak. I just got up and I done it, but I do train speakers. So if anybody ever needs help learning how to be a public speaker, I'm more than willing to help them, because we need leadership and we need organization, and God gave us charisma and he gave us the power of the voice to do that.